Dear learners, welcome back to SWAYAM NPTEL course on Library Automation and Networking. This is first week, first module Library Automation, lecture number 2, Library Automation, Objectives, Needs, Purpose and General Requirements. Dear learners, in last session we have already discussed about what we mean by automation and what is the difference between automation and library automation, what are the different characteristics of library automation, basic, its meaning, concepts, and there are different definitions given by different personalities on library automation. So we have discussed all these things in the last session, and I hope that you have had a good idea about what you mean by automation and library automation and all its definitions and meanings. So in this particular session, we will be talking more about the objectives, the needs, and what is the purpose of doing library automation, and what are the general requirements, what we require to perform a particular library automation activity in any of the libraries. Whether you are working in a smaller library or a bigger library, or irrespective of the category of libraries like academic library system, say for example university library, or college libraries, or school libraries, special libraries, or libraries of national importance, public libraries, research libraries, any category of library. So how do we do this particular automation? So what is the need? Whether do you really require the automation process in a particular library? So if we want to do that, what are the objectives should be, and what are the basic requirements to perform a particular activity as part of library automation activities. Let us see this particular session. We will be talking about more about objective of library automation, then need of the library automation, and then requirements, basic requirements of library automation, and what is the purpose of library automation in detail. So dear learners, we have seen that library automation is something like we are applying computers and information technologies to convert a particular manual library or a traditional library where there is no technology or there is no mechanization, there is no automation is there. So we will be converting that traditional library into a modern library. That means we will be adding the computer component or automation component into that traditional library so that all the services, all the activities or any other special activity will be part of automation process. So it will be largely helping any person who is working in the library as well as any user who is using that particular library. And many times when a traditional library system and when a modern library system like contemporary library system where you apply the automation or computerization, you can see there is a huge difference or there is a transition from users, from passive users to active users. That means the demand, the requirement or the necessity or the perception towards libraries of a particular user in the present scenario is completely changed, because their demand requirement is not like how they behaved in a traditional library system where they come to library and then they give some kind of a slip, like there will be a closed access system in the library, then they used to give something on the slip and hand over to the librarian, then that particular person will go to the respective shelf and then they will take that particular document and giving them. It takes a lot of time and it can't save the users. As we say about fourth law of library and information science, save the time of the user. So somehow this is not serving the purpose of saving the user when it comes to a traditional library. So as we know that there are different types of libraries, so the automation activities or the regular activities can be different. Some people will be having only acquisition and cataloging and then classification, and some people will have all this process, and some people will have only reference area. So depends upon the library activities. So you need to decide whether we will go for an automation and how effectively this automation can be fulfill your purpose and how effectively this can be given to users. So in general, when you talk about automation, as we have discussed in the last session, it is a kind of a general term. Automation is a general term. When it comes to library and information science, the library automation is the application of information and communication technologies and internet technologies also. Now, if these days we talk about automation, even the digital libraries or the digital library tools, techniques, these are all part of computerization or automation process. So, we can do lot of activities, not only the housekeeping operations. Apart from that, we have many library services and many other activities. We can call it as extended activities or additional services that can be performed once you do the automation process. So, in general terms, in simple terms, it is a kind of automation. That means you are applying or you are adding something to the library in terms of computers, information and communication technology or networking system to change the regular working mode, that means traditional mode of activities, into a computerized assisted or computer assisted technologies. So, when we look at in that angle, so when you do library automation, this library automation can be performed in any of the traditional activities. As we talk about the areas, like we have many housekeeping operations areas like acquisition, technical service, circulation service, serial control, even maintenance division or reports, statistics, record maintenance, even the additional services like photocopy services, binding services, services for physically disabled people. So, these are all the different areas where we can have different types of services. So, automation can be applied in any of the areas where you will make the complex task very easier and very fast. So, dear learners, as we know that to perform a library automation activities, we need some kind of a tools or techniques. So, normally we call them as softwares. The software, hardware and the basic requirements like infrastructure. So, these are all required for performing an automation process. So, when we talk about automation in that way, so there are many softwares, as you know, that we mainly use for controlling the database or controlling or maintaining your collection. So, in such a way that we do all the housekeeping operations as we have discussed, like acquisition, technical or even cataloging, classification, then circulation process, serial control and also this maintenance and other record keepings. So, these are all done by a particular software. That software we call it as integrated library system. So, when we talk about library automation, the major objective, the main thing which comes to any librarian's mind is we are doing an automation process of all the housekeeping operations. That means all the housekeeping activities in a particular library will be automated, so that all the process will have some kind of an integration. That means there will be an interlink, there will be a linkage between two sessions. Say for example, once you do the acquisition and when you add all the members details into that, then you can perform the circulation procedures. So, these are all the normal things when we talk about library automation. But in fact, it is not that only the housekeeping operations you can perform using a library automation software. There are many other activities when you automate. Apart from integrated library system or automating the housekeeping operations, we have many other activities such as alerting services or database indexing and abstracting services, newspaper clipping services, translation services. So, there are many such activities, additional services can be provided even if you go for library automation. So, what I mean to say is, it is not only performing housekeeping operations using a library automation procedures, because many of the people normally have a misunderstanding that automation means we will automate only the activities, that means only the housekeeping activities, but there are many other activities can be done or can be performed with the assistance of computers, networks and information and communication technologies. So, as a person who is learning about library and information science, especially library automation, so they should know that there are many areas or many levels where we can perform library automation. So, what is the real requirement or what is the basic need of this library automation? Let us discuss that in first. The first objective of any library automation is to have a control over all the operations, as well as it eliminates all the duplications. So, when you do a particular work in a traditional library system, as we know that many of the activities are, it's something like a clerical as well as a repetitive work. So, there is a kind of a duplication in each and every activities we perform. Say for example, when you take circulation counter. So, in a traditional library system, as we know that there are many techniques or tools which we provide in the circulation system, that we call it as circulation procedures, to perform the circulation activities. The major activities in a circulation, as you know, that we issue return book, that we call it as transaction, or we sometimes renew the books, or sometimes users wanted to get the book which is not available in the library, we call them as reservation. Even we used to collect fines, etc. So these are all part of circulation procedures. So when you do a circulation procedure in a manual system, what is happening normally is, we used to have any of the circulation method like register system or temporary slip system, one card system, two card system, or Brownie, New York, all these systems we will discuss in the later sessions. So there are many such kind of a circulation procedures. So when we use such kind of a manual system, let us take the example of register system. When you take a register system, what do you normally do? The user comes with a document and he will give that document to the circulation staff. You will receive that, then you will check the details of the particular document, whether it can be issued or not. Then you will also collect the details of that particular member. All the details are correct, that is membership is valid, active. So then you will enter all the details into the register one by one. That means it will take 2 to 3 minutes to enter all the details, like the details of that particular member, his name and other details, and accordingly the details of the book like bibliographical details like title, author, this has to be handwritten. That means we have to write it in hand in that particular register. So you will have this time, that means you will be spending a lot of time as a user to get that book issued. That means a lot of activities which are done in this particular person is time consuming. And again, if you look at, it is a case of a single person, but when you look at, suppose there are 10 people coming together and they are taking 10 different books, so how much time a particular circulation staff will take to clear all these 10 transactions. So the time when you calculate, it is high, and as well as he is repeating all the works, like he is writing his name, membership number, details, again the book details. So it is a kind of repetitive work as well as a kind of a duplication where it takes a huge time to perform that particular activity. So what is the requirement when you talk about this particular scenario? When you do the library automation in this particular scenario, it can drastically reduce the process which are involved in the transaction procedures. I was telling just a single example. So where the particular staff can do just with a single click, or he can just enter even manually in the system the particular member's membership number, so that all the details will be displayed within a single click. Even in the similar way, with a single document number, all the details of the particular document will be available in that way. So within maximum 2 to 3 seconds, the details of the user as well as details of the document has been recorded in the system, so that the performance of that particular thing can be done very easily. So when you do library automation, the major objective is to avoid such kind of a duplicative work, repetitive work, clerical work, and also you have a control over the data. That means when you perform such kind of things in a manual system, what happens when you write something in hurry, or there are many people standing in the queue. So when you perform such kind of activities, it is a huge task for you to maintain such kind of a consistency. In such cases, you may sometimes commit some errors or mistakes. It can have a huge impact in the later stage. So when we talk that way, so the automation and without automation, the automation procedures, example, so same example if you take as a circulation service, it saves lot of time, not only of that particular staff as well as the user also. What is the meaning of saving such huge quantum of time is, for a library staff, this particular time, the time in which he or she in the circulation counter is getting, can be utilized for giving some other constructive services. That means they can utilize the same time for any other purpose that can be highly beneficial for the users. Even at the same time, users also will be comfortable, they will be more convenient to coming to the library, as they don't want to waste the time in standing in front of the circulation counter for a long time. So in this scenario, not only in the circulation procedure, even almost all such kind of an activities, when you perform a library automation, so it can considerably save the time of the library staff as well as library user. So the next benefit is it integrate these library services. So what do you mean by integration? So it is something like which is connected, or it is having some kind of a linkage, or it is having some kind of a connection between each other. That means, I will tell you an example. Say for example, you are doing something in the acquisition division. Let us take the example of cataloging. That means you are cataloging a particular book in the cataloging module. So all the data are fed when you are making the data entry in the cataloging process. So this same data will be used in the circulation counter. That means when a person get this particular book as issued book, so once you enter the details of that particular book as a barcode or accession number, whatever method you follow, all the details will be automatically fed. That means that particular data is extracted from the cataloging details. That means all the book details will be directly extracting from the cataloging module, whereas you don't need to repeat the same data when you are doing the circulation process. Even in the similar way, this data, that means we will be having some kind of a transaction. That means this particular books, how many times issued, how many people have taken this particular book on this particular type. So that means we will be having a complete picture of the statistics or the reports pertaining to that particular book, and how many times this book has been sent to binding section. So that means it is having some kind of a connection where these details are interrelated. So once you entered somewhere in any of the modules, I will tell you some other example like vendors list. So when you are making something recommendation, that means you are getting a recommendation from a user to purchase something or subscribe something. So you are making a purchase order to a vendor, that means a supplier. So once you make such kind of a supply order, you can enter the details of a particular periodical. Say for example, you take a journal. So you are buying a journal, you are subscribing a journal, that journal you made a purchase order. So along with purchase order, the data is already fed in the purchase order, that means it is already in the acquisition module. So once this particular journal has come to the library, so once you start entering the details, you no need to enter the details again manually, because it is already there in the purchase order. So you can just import that details into this particular module, so that your purchase order is already ready. So that data will be extracted from that module to acquisition module. Some or other way these are all interrelated or interconnected. So almost all the activities can be integrated. That is the reason why we call library automation software as integrated library system. That means the whole system is connected each other in one or other way, so that the services or the activities can be performed with a single click. So of course it is also save the time of the user, and it is the processes or it is the procedures which we follow to perform a particular activity. It also speed up the routine works. That means whatever the duplication works we have seen, so it almost the performance of that particular activity will be doubled in terms of speed. That means with a short time you will be able to perform a huge task or a complex task in an easy method. So because of all these things like saving of time and reducing the complexity of work and reducing the duplication and reducing the time in the repetitive work, so because of all this, the functionality will be consistent and you will have a good data, you will be having all the details intact, so that you will be happy, and whenever you wanted to retrieve some kind of a reports or some kind of a statistics, it is easy, error free and consistent. And similarly, the users also will be happy in such a way that they are getting all the services on time, and they are happy to get the details in which the way in which they wanted. Say for example, they wanted to know how many books are due in my account, or suppose if they wanted to know how many dues I have incurred during this particular period, or even if you wanted to check whether this particular resource is not available in the library, what is the status of issue of that particular document and when it will be returned. So all these statistics and reports and the queries of that particular user will be solved within no time, so that they will also be happy in that way. In that way, it improves the quality of the services towards users as well as the activities which are performed in the libraries. So the next objective is it also enable the library services in an effective manner. Say for example, when you have a card cataloging system, the users will not be able to check that particular details from where they are. That means without physically coming to the library, they will not be able to check that. Without automation, they will not be able to knowing many of the things like what are the services you provide, what are the activities which are available, or what are the additional services which are available in the libraries. Say for example, when you create a catalog for a particular document, if it is in a manual system, we prepare the card, it takes time. we prepare the main entry and then reference entries, etc. That means there are many approaches to a particular document. So based on that, we will be making many approaches in terms of author, title, etc. And we will be keeping in somewhere like it will be a cataloging room or cataloging place where all the cataloging cards will be arranged. So users have to come and check. It takes a lot of time and they may be missing many of the relevant information also. But when you do such kind of activities in an automated environment, users will be getting all such services in an easy method. Say for example OPAC. When you take online public access catalog, that means a user is getting the manual catalog converted into that means the manual cataloging converted into a digital form where this catalog can be accessed even from the outside of the library. That means sitting from outside, wherever that particular person, either he is at home or at organization where he is working, from their desktop they will be able to check what are the items available in a library, what is the status of it. So it is a kind of method when you go for library automation, it not only saves the time of the user as well as the activities, the services which are provided by library will be highly utilized, so that accordingly the resources which are available in the library also will be utilized maximum. Say for example, if the person knows that this particular book is not available in the library, if he is having an option for reserving it, when that particular person returns that, who has taken that book, when he returns that book, this person will get an alert message that your book has come to the library. So that way it can considerably reduce the wastage of time, so that users will also be comfortable, so they will utilize those resources maximum. So when you provide such kind of activities, it develops an innovative methods to provide maximum services to the users which are more comfortable to the users, so that we will be making a passive users to active users. That means somehow libraries attracting the users, they never come to the libraries, to come to the library and utilize the resources when you perform a particular activity in an automated environment. So apart from this, you will be having the advantages, like when you talk about the objective of library automation, the one of the major objective, we can say that we can have resource sharing and also the networking of resources. That means, as we know that no libraries in the world is self-sufficient in its resources and manpower, etc. So in that manner, we can have the resource sharing and networking that will be more effective to utilize the resources optimum, and you can provide maximum services to the users so that they will be happy to get all the resources, though it is not available in the library. So these are the major objectives of library automation. So even then there are different levels of library automation. So as I told you that there are different types of libraries. In any library you take, there are many levels of library automations. As I told you that it is not only related to housekeeping operations, there are many other activities can be performed using the library automation procedures, such as housekeeping operations, where we talk about integrated library system, and use of electronic resources can be done by library automation. Information services and products that can also be accessed through the automation process. And people will have also the facilities like remote accessing. Suppose if a person is sitting at home, from there itself using the remote accessing facility, he will be or she will be able to use the resources which are available in the library. And also we have discussed like networking and the consortia, where we will be getting a huge mass of resources, though the library is not able to purchase such kind of resources. And also the interlibrary loans. And apart from that, we have all the facilities to have such kind of information in a effective and efficient manner. So now we look into what is the need and purpose of library automation. So we have seen the objectives, these are the objectives, and these are the different levels of library automation. Now we see what is the need. Do we really require this particular automation or not? Yes, it is really required, because one of the reasons why we require library automation is there is an exponential growth of resources or the publications. It is very difficult for any library to manage such kind of a huge mass of collection in a traditional environment, because we need to organize them, we need to document them, we have to provide the services in a proper manner. So it is very challenging task for a library to perform such activities if you don't do the library automation. So one of the reasons is the growth of publication, and the other reason is effective and efficient mechanism can be given through the library automation. And also when we talk about the need and purpose, so we need to provide quality services for the users, because the demand and the requirement of users are keep on changing. We have always that particular issue that the library members or users having different perceptions, and they have different types of requirements, demands and needs. So based on that, the libraries have to act. So you need to have a better services that can be achieved only through the library automation process. And of course, when we talk about the other points, like shortage of infrastructure will be the other reason. It can eliminate all the duplication process. So that is the reason why we make the library automation process. And also it increases the operational efficiencies, and automation brings the standardization also. In each and everything we will be having some kind of standardization, so that you will be more happy to perform the activities which are happening in a particular library. So each and every activity will have some kind of an order or system, or we will say that standardization, so that it can be performed in a well manner. It is also increases the speed, effectiveness, quality, etc. of the services and activities do perform in the library. So there are many other purposes when we go for library automation, such as it is a cost-effective mechanism. Once it is implemented, this can be utilized for a long time and in an effective manner. It can also improve the staff efficiency, performances, accuracy, effectiveness. All these things can be performed using a library automation process. And it also provides better access to the resources, and users will be able to use the resources in the remote places, and they will be having more resources than the real library holds. And without coming to the physical library, they will be able to use it from anywhere they are. And these are all the advantages, especially when you talk about the system standard accuracy and the performance efficiencies and the user satisfaction. So when you look at all this angle, it always requires a need and purpose. That means you definitely need, and the purpose of library automation is an essential component of any of the libraries which need to be sustained in the 21st centuries. So apart from this, we need some kind of a basic requirement, as we have seen that library automation is a compulsory thing when we live in this information and communication technology era. So when we talk about that, so at least we need some kind of a basic requirements. So what are the basic requirements we need to have some kind of a library automation? You look at any of these. See, when I'm talking about library automation, it can be only a single activity can be automated. For that also we need some kind of a minimum requirement, such as we need software, we need hardware, we need the infrastructural requirements, and we need, suppose if we wanted to create digital libraries, we need softwares for that, institutional repository, we need softwares for that, and we need a technical staff. That means the staff should be technically sound, they should be having a technical knowledge, and also the funding should be there, budget should be there, and also the support from the management. That means higher authority to protect you, to support you, to make you perform this particular activity is essential. We also need like the other peripherals like computers, servers, storage mediums, etc. and also the facilities like users training program. So once you have done the users also, if they are not technically sound, even then they should be able to provide some kind of a training program for them, make them aware about the procedures and activities we perform, as well as we need to provide some kind of a sensitization program or user awareness program to the members, so that they will also be learning about what are the procedures and activities you follow as part of library automation. So these are all the basic requirements when you go for or when you plan for a library automation. Dear learners, let me conclude with this. When we talk about library automation, of course we are having this particular facility, so we need to utilize that. So library automation, when we talk about that, it can considerably reduce the task of doing some kind of a repetitive work or duplication work, and you will have the complete standardization, accuracy, and the system performances and the efficiency of the operations, etc. through the library automation. There are different areas where you can go for library automation, not only the housekeeping operation, that means regular activities. Apart from that, you can do the networking activities, library consortia type, and then you can have resource sharing, you can have interlibrary loans, and also the people, the users or the members can access the resource from remote areas like wherever they are. even the resources which are subscribed by the libraries or the resources which are getting through the consortia. So these are all the additional benefits, and apart from that, the services like alerting services, translation services, indexing services, abstracting services, the resources which are available in electronic format within the library or within the external resources like internet. So these are all the major advantages when you go for library automation. I hope that you have learned what is the meaning of library automation and what is the purpose, what is the need, what is the minimum requirement of doing that, that means system requirements, and also what are the major advantages when you go for library automation. Thank you.